Hey everybody. So today we're going to talk about stigma. So stigma is defined as like a mark of discredit, or it can be like a shameful thing towards a group of people. For instance, like whenever the AIDS crisis was happening, and still today, gay people, or men who have sex with men, are a lot of the time there's a stigma towards them for HIV. And that's what would happen back during the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. It still happens today. Luckily, stigma has been reduced a lot due to things like education, medicine, and people who go out and speak about reducing stigma and how HIV isn't as easily spread as people thought it was. Things like that can help reduce stigma. So today I'm going to talk about the ways that I have been affected by stigma. And I encourage you all to leave comments below and ask questions, or say positive things. That's great. All those are welcome. And definitely share this video and talk to people about stigma. And that can apply to a lot of different things in life. But today I'm specifically going to talk about how I've experienced stigma with HIV. So I have a little story to tell. I'm not going to drop names of people because I just don't believe in that. That's kind of like putting shame on them, and I don't want to do that. Obviously, if I drop names, it's because I had that person's permission, or we're on good terms with this story. So I was diagnosed back in 2015, August, with HIV, and I was kind of moving around a lot, we'll say. I'll get into that story probably in another video. But yeah, and I might have already posted it. We'll see. Not sure how this is going to go yet. But anyway, so I had moved to Houston in August 2015, whenever I was diagnosed. Yes, because I was diagnosed in Houston. Sorry, I moved to Houston in either late April, early May of 2015. That's right. Sorry, back up. So I had been diagnosed with HIV. I was having a lot of unsafe sex with people because that's kind of the way that I coped in the past with my depression. Again, that's something I might talk about more in another video. But yeah, so having a lot of unprotected sex, and drinking a lot, and just all those things. So anyway, so I moved to Houston to live with a friend at the time. And while I was living with her, she kind of knew like what I was doing. And she told me like, you need to go and get tested. It's really important. So I went and got tested. And I obviously got the result that I was HIV positive. I went to Planned Parenthood, I believe, in Houston. So I got the result, and I stayed living with her for a while afterwards, like maybe a month or so. And then I noticed as time went on that she started to get really weird about me living with her. At one point she's like, hey, like I went and talked to the doctor who I see, and they said that, you really really shouldn't be living with me, so it might be good for you to find another place to live, because you can affect my health. And at the time I wasn't very well educated, so I didn't know a lot about HIV. I couldn't even stand up for myself because I was like, oh no, that makes sense. Like, I have HIV. This is a life-threatening illness, because at the time I really thought it was, which it can be if you don't take care of it. But we'll get into that in another video as well. So yeah, so this friend of mine at the time, she was like, you can't live with me. Like, I can't have you living here because of my health. And I was like, no, that makes sense. And I had talked to one of my friends at the time, who I don't talk to too much anymore, but we talk every once in a while. And he was like, no, Mitchell, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And he compared it to her having a backache and waking up the next day and saying that I gave her like a backache from living with her. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but basically like, the way he explained it was really good. And I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, so he was basically telling me like there's no risk of me giving her HIV unless we're having unprotected sex and I'm not taking my meds. I was like, oh, well, this is my friend, like she knows what she's talking about. I'm just gonna listen to her, it's okay. Again, not knowing that I was really no risk to her. So I started to notice as time went on, for the month or whatever that I lived with her remaining, she wanted me to brush my teeth in the sink in the kitchen, not in the bathroom sink where we shared the bathroom, because we shared a bathroom at the time. And I was like, okay, like, you know, it made me feel kind of gross about myself. I was like, no, this makes sense. Like, you know, what? I'm not going to put her at risk, so I'll just brush my teeth in the sink in the kitchen. So I would do that. She would make me bleach the sink afterwards because she was just very freaked out about possibly getting HIV. So I would brush my teeth in the sink every day and then bleach it afterwards, so that I wouldn't transmit HIV to her. At the time, that's what I thought. Yeah, so that's the biggest story that I have that always sticks in my mind. Very lucky that family and other friends have never had issues. Like, they've never, like, been like, oh, you know, use this different plate or use different silverware than us or anything. Like, they don't freak out about stuff like that. And this is not to put shame on this friend of mine, former friend of mine. It's just to tell you, like, how little knowledge there still is about HIV, and we're in 2020 now. Granted, this was 5 years ago, but even with all the information that we had, even as of 5 years ago, it's like people still have these stigmas out there, and it's not okay with anything. You know, even now, like, there's so much stigma around COVID-19 and like people who have it, and like it can affect anybody. It doesn't matter what your racial background is, you know, where you come from. Like things like this can affect anybody. Yes, for HIV, it was concentrated in a specific group for a while, and it still is, but still, it can affect anybody. Like, these things can affect anybody, and it's not okay to push stigma at certain people, certain groups of people, just because, you know, it largely affected this group of people, or it may have come from these group of people, or whatever. Like, it's not okay to treat people badly because of this, you know? So yeah, I don't want to make these videos too long, but I did have another experience, someone who I was trying to hook up with whenever I was in Sydney. This was a very interesting story, in my opinion. You know, because Sydney is a very progressive city. They're very gay friendly. You know, they have great services for HIV. And while I was living there, I was trying to hook up with this person, and they told me that they, you know, they were like, oh, like, you know, they wanted to have sex without protection, which, you know, I'm on my meds and they were on PrEP, so I was like, okay, like, we can talk about this. And so they were like, you know, no protection, we don't want to use condoms. I was like, okay. So then they ask if I'm clean or dirty, which I hate that question. I hate it, and I always correct people. And this is really cool. This is my favorite thing to say. So if people ask if I'm clean or dirty, I always say, well, I'm clean. I took a shower today, so I'm clean. You know, I washed my body. And then sometimes people are like, what? And then they're like, oh, haha, but I mean, do you have HIV or not? And I was like, we'll see. Like, if people say that, like, oh, do you have HIV or not? Then I'll say, like, oh, well, no, I have HIV, but I'm undetectable, and I'm taking my meds. And some people will react okay. Some people will be like, I can't have sex with you, I'm sorry. So anyway, just a little background there. So this person who I was gonna hook up with, they asked if I was clean or dirty. And I said, I took a shower today, you know, like normal. And they're like, what? And I was like, if you're asking if I have HIV or not, I do have HIV, but I'm undetectable. Now, mind you, this person was in their like later 30s, and they're living in the city of Sydney, which is very progressive. From when I lived there, I found that a lot of people knew about HIV and didn't make a big deal about it. So this person was like, I'm sorry, like, I can't hook up with you. And I was like, interesting. Like, I'm not shaming anybody for their sexual practices, of course, but it was interesting to me how he was okay with having sex with no condoms as long as the person was HIV negative. Didn't ask about any other STDs, you know, like anything else. Just like, if you have HIV, flat out no. Even though I was on my meds and undetectable, as I have been for years now. So it's very interesting how that was an immediate shutdown for like no hooking up at all. And I was like, huh, interesting. But yeah, anyway, so those are some stories that I have about stigma, and how it's affected me. Learning, the more that I've learned now, of course, I look back and it really hurt my feelings, because especially with that friend I had, you know, she was a really good friend for a while. We went through a lot of stuff together, you know, for the 4 or 5 years we were friends. And it sucked, you know, to lose a friend like that, because she's a really good person. She really is still, I believe that. There's just a lot of things that people don't that they're not educated about and they don't want to learn about. And it's really sad because it, affects, long-term relationships and things like that. Again, I'm very lucky, that my family and my friends, like people I'm still friends with now, have been really understanding and really accepting and loving of me. But yeah, stigma's not okay. It can make people feel really bad about themselves and like dirty, as I don't like to refer to myself or anybody else as, but they can make them feel that way, Yeah, so that's kind of my overarching goal for doing these videos and what I want to do with my career eventually is health education, especially to kids, because I really want to reduce stigma, because there's so much stigma out there around so many things, mental health, HIV, just so many things. Even being part of the LGBTQ community, so many stigmas around that. But yeah, hope this wasn't too long, and hopefully it was a little interesting to you all. I'm probably going to be posting these videos every Sunday, so hopefully that'll be the timeline, and I hope you enjoy. Leave some comments below. I'm still getting used to this, so it's going to be a little awkward the first few times probably. I might sound like I'm whispering because I don't like to be too loud because my walls are very thin where I'm living right now. And I just, I don't know. I'm a little quiet, I guess, to be respectful to the neighbors. So anyway, leave comments below. Let me know what you think. Ask questions, please ask questions. I would love to answer questions. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you straight up I don't know. And if I get enough questions, I might even make a follow-up video just for questions from the previous video. That'd be kind of cool. I have a lot of videos to put out then. So please ask questions. Be positive, don't be negative. If you have constructive criticism, that's fine, but no negative things, please. Like, trying to keep this as positive as possible. Yeah. So thanks for listening.